Hi, I am Lynn Williams. I'm an author of parenting books, and I'm also a family dynamics coach. And I talk a lot about the dynamics in families. I started writing books for parents when I went through a divorce and moved my children from the suburbs to the city. And the lessons that I was learning in terms of how to take care of my children, how to take care of myself, were dramatic, sometimes heartbreaking. And so when I talk to any parent, but particularly those who are going through divorce or separation, then I have a special spot for them. And part of the work that I do is to concentrate on how to manage, whether it's a day-to-day management or a period of time where eventually your heart heals and your family heals. And so while I don't work specifically, I don't say that my work is just designed for a divorced parent. I have come from a divorce. I'm a product of divorce, and I understand it probably way better than I want to. So that's a little bit about me. One of the things that is painfully obvious is that generally, depending on how your relationship is going with your spouse, you may not be conscious of the messages that you're sending your children. And usually, my focus is on how we are interacting with our children because they're the ones that are left after the divorce and after the separation and all those kinds of things. And so when I talk to clients, particularly women or, single women or single men who've gone through divorce, I talk about how to take care of yourself in a way that you don't hurt as much as you do. Because even if you don't talk about it every day or even someday, there's a gnawing, there's an ache, a pain that people who've gone through divorce feel. It's almost like having a surgery, except that there's really no medicine that you can take short of taking time, and whether it's meditating, praying, reading books, or just living day to day, which seems to make the feeling of pain and hurt and just all of those things that you start to feel when you go through divorce eventually fade away. I remember feeling, I had gone through 18 years of marriage and discovered, you know, quite by accident, couldn't really understand why we didn't get along as well as I thought we should have, for having been married 18 years. But I had a discovery, and that discovery said to me I had to divorce. So I went through the steps that you go through. We talked, we had therapy and counseling and that kind of thing. But the feeling of hopelessness, I'm a person of faith, and so I felt that God, either I had let God down or God let me down. I wasn't really sure who, or maybe we both let each other down, and I wasn't sure. And it usually happened to me, right as the weekend was the ending. So I'd be on Sunday night, way too late since I had to go to work the next morning, trying to figure myself out and trying to figure out why I felt so completely by myself, hopeless, out of it. Um, all of those feelings, I can't even, think of all of them. I'm sure there's an entire dictionary of feelings that you have going through divorce, but those are the ones that I felt. And so, I just put some steps in place. Time took place, but I also prayed and I lived each day. And I actually talked to my mother, which is really odd because, to me, divorce is such a personal experience. I had a therapist as well, so I talked to her as well. But divorce is such a personal experience that If you're a private person, then it doesn't feel like it's something that you're comfortable sharing. And I think that in if I were to add any suggestion, I would say find somebody that you can talk to that will be able to listen to you over a period of time. Maybe not a best girlfriend, because after a while they're going to get tired. They're not going to be able to support you the way that you need to. So maybe it is a therapist, or maybe it's somebody that like an older person, like a mom or a grandmother, or somebody who's going to say, oh honey, it's going to be okay, and it really is going to be okay. And so I think for this, one of the things that I offer in when I talk about finding superwoman or mother-daughter coaching or healing the wounded daughter or any of those programs that I offer, I always talk about hope, because hope is there. It's at the end of the tunnel. Yes, you do have to go through a lot of consternation, and you gotta go through a lot of who you are and what it is that you really want to be. And I think the quicker you get to who it is that you want to be, and not so much why you are in the position that you're in, the better you'll feel, the quicker the process seems to go. It is a process, just like they say death is a process. I can't tell you how many steps. It really does depend on you and the circumstances. For example, somebody who is going through divorce because they chose to go through divorce has a much different outcome than someone who is being divorced. And it's an entirely different feeling. There are I believe in both cases you have a sense of loss and a sense of death, an ending, all of those things. But I will challenge you to look for the best in it. And, I say to people, don't stay married for your children, because if you're miserable, then so are they. And so, are you a failure? Not at all. I think the failure is when you won't look at the situation for what it is and decide what you're going to do about it. So when I talk to, in my Finding Superwoman, I say, as women, we can have it all. And that means that you are adult enough to make the decision if it's time to move on and move out of your relationship because it's not healthy, it's either not good for you or not good for him or not good for your children. Then you have to make those hard decisions and move on. And, are you a failure? Absolutely not. Because I look at it this way, just as an entrepreneur, which I'm also, there are no failures. You're just having more education. And sometimes the education is a little longer. I always tease my friends and I say, we're in our PhD program for life. This is a PhD for life. That's what, when we graduate from this program, it's called, C.L. Williams, and C. Lynn Williams, PhD. And then they'll say, well, what was your topic? And we'll say life. So, no, you're not a failure. The fact is, there's so many people who are afraid to get into a relationship that they won't even try it. And so imagine how empty their lives are. If you look at it from a different perspective, maybe that relationship didn't work out, and then that's okay. What you've learned from it, think about what you've learned from it. And this is when I'll say, so start a journal. I remember when I decided I was going to divorce my husband, I went to my manager at work and I said, I need a week off. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm contemplating divorce and I need time to think about it. And I'm sure that he's never had an employee say something weird like that, but I really did need that time to think about my life and where I wanted to go and all of those things. And I started journaling, and I also did a vision board. And the vision board was for me to see into the future and to start looking at what I wanted. And the journal was for me to actually talk about, what was going on day to day. And so you might not even want to look at it in 6 months, but years later, maybe a year, maybe 2 years later, you'll find that some of the things that you've written down have changed your life dramatically. And so I don't know where my picture just went, Bren, but it disappeared. So I don't know if we're still taping, but yep. I'll keep talking.
Yeah.
So managing emotions, what would I suggest? Gosh, there's no right or wrong here. The one thing that I do say, if you feel sad and tearful, cry. Crying is completely healing. People don't realize you're not a crybaby when you cry, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Find that space where it's just you and your higher power, whether that's God or the universe or whatever you call something that's bigger than you, and let the tears out and let the sadness. It's the sadness. I mean, even if you never got along with that person in your marriage, the fact is that you're splitting and life is going to change. And so there's no failure with that. There's no hopelessness. You might feel like you'll never find a person again, but I promise you that as you start to heal and you get a better feeling for who you are and what it is that you want from yourself and what you have to offer, you will be surprised at the magnet that you become to other people. I can't tell you how many guys seem to come out of the woodwork. I was just like, what in the world is going on here? I wasn't looking to find anybody, and yet here were, I won't say hundreds of men, but lots of them. And that, initially I couldn't even imagine having another romance. I just couldn't. It was just like, no, I just want to get on with my life and raise my kids. So maybe you feel that way. But I will tell you, the only emotion that I want you to, really think about and let go of, once you let the tears out, if you find that they're lasting too long, and too long is up to you, not to somebody else, then make an appointment and talk to somebody professionally, because what you don't want to end up in is a depression that is treatable. And depending on how you feel about that, just hear me out here. Some things you can let go of, and some things you feel like, I know people, I've heard them say this, oh, my life will never be the same, I'll never find anybody else. And I believe that words have power. And since words have power and our thoughts have power, then every time you say something that is positive, you'll be surprised at how it turns out to be exactly that. The same thing happens as if you say things that are negative. So my suggestion, maybe you're not the vision board type person, but start listing out maybe one thing a day that you love. 5 things each day that you're thankful for. Because what happens is when you start focusing on something other than you, then life starts to show you what's out here. And there's so much out here for all of us. I mean, like you might rediscover a sunrise. If you're the kind of person who, you're finally out of this marriage, and all you have the energy for is a walk in the morning, I cannot tell you how beautiful that walk will become as you allow yourself to enjoy the things that are around you. Just the simple things, waking up, sleeping through the night, because if you're going through divorce, I promise you there's little, there's so many different aspects of emotions that are, maybe you have rage. Let me just talk a little bit about some of the emotions that I experienced. First of all, I was very angry. Even though I wasn't completely happy in my marriage, I was angry that I was going to have to divorce. And, I won't explain it, why I was going through divorce. That's not really important at this point. But I will tell you that, anger is all consuming. And it's important, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have anger, but you have to let it go. All of this stuff, anger, resentment, what else is an issue? Abject sadness. Oh, I'm so sad. Okay, let all of that go, because eventually it starts to dig inside and it manifests as illness. So other things, get into something that's good for you. Maybe you start an exercise program, do yoga, start watching your diet. Even if you have a great diet, do something different. Find things that you love to do. And that's what I started doing with my children. We would do Friday nights, payday weekends. We either did movies, we went to, and I'm saying we, if there's no we, if you don't have children, then find something that you like to do. You know, join a meetup. I know in the United States, meetups are huge, and you can pretty much find anything that you want that's of interest to you. So, managing the emotions is probably a day-to-day experience. I know it is, because I think about where I started and how I used that particular week to start planning my life out for the rest of my life, and what it took each day to make it. Some days I didn't even think about it. And some days, if they were days that, I had to go to court or had to interact with my ex, or we had issues with, who had the kids and all of those kinds of things, I promise if you're not a person of faith, then you're going to have to find something really, really concrete and secure to hold on to. But for me, it was a prayer. And I don't mind sharing that. My prayer was that I would be able to have a great relationship with this man I was divorcing. I know it sounds crazy, but it was true. And continue to raise our kids together. And I will tell you to this day, that was, I'm in a new marriage, 15 years now. So we're talking, gosh, long time ago. We are able to, when events come up for our kids, my daughter just got married a few months ago. We were all there. So stepdad, bio dad, everybody was there. And you look back on life and you say, oh my God, I can't believe I've grown to this point. And it's really amazing, but it's possible. And so as I'm talking to you about hope, huge, write it on a sign and put it inside your closet. That was the other thing that I would do, is I would write a list of things I wanted, in addition to my vision board. If I had short-term goals, for example, maybe it was, getting ready to be summer and I needed to do something with the kids, school was going to be out, or if I needed to have a different outlook for myself, I changed churches. What did I start doing? I started a book club, things that I enjoy. And so I wrote this on a board, put it in my closet so nobody else could see it because it was just for me. And so there's different ways that you can begin your new life. But begin the new life. Don't hold on to the old life because it's over. And I don't remember what there's a poem about seasons. People are in your life for a season, for a reason, a season, and a lifetime, I think is how it goes. And it's true. Some people will be around forever and other people won't. And that's how I looked at, my first marriage. I wouldn't, at the time, I probably would say don't ever get married, but that's not fair. People have to experience their own lives. So I say, do the best you can in terms of deciding if this is the right person for you. And once you're in it to win it, right? In it to win it. So, does it make sense that it hurts so much? Yeah, because you're a human being and you have a heart. You're a feeling person. So yeah, it does hurt. And you're feeling hopeless. How will you feel better? That is entirely up to you. If you will follow some of the suggestions that I've made today and stay with them, don't give up. Some days will be better than others. Are you going to, become an alcoholic or something like that? Not necessarily, hopefully not. Occasional glass of wine, a couple of nights with your girlfriends. Yeah. But you'd be surprised at how life presents just a prism of wonderful experiences for you to have. And all you have to do is decide that you want something else, something new and something wonderful. And remember that there are no failures. They're just learning experiences. Did you learn a lot because think about it. The one thing that I was thinking about is this. For me, and I don't know if this is everybody, but it tends to me that I learn the most the biggest lesson usually with the hardest experience. And so for my divorce, once I stopped blaming my spouse, and realized that I had an equal part in this story, I could rewrite the story. Does that make sense? And rewriting the story meant that not only did he have a part in the story, I did too. And so, once I was able to get that figured out in my mind and really look at it as, we have two beautiful children together, and we, to this day, are, really able to have a conversation without, looking at each other with disgust. And I know different people have different kinds of experiences, and some of them don't lend themselves for you to be friends, afterwards. You'll have to you'll have to know the best for your own situation. But I will tell you that there are no failures. I believe that there's always hope, and if you believe that there's hope, then there is. And if you don't believe there's hope, there is no hope. Does that make sense?